Oh, it's a beautiful sight right there, isn't it? A couple lovely ladies. But I think I've got the 1800 sold. Guy's supposed to be coming next Friday to pick it up, and he is planning on finishing the restoration on it. He's got a buddy who's going to do the sheet metal, all that work, and I think it's going to turn into a tractor ride tractor, which should work out pretty well. It's a good tractor for that. It's one it's good to be seen. I mean, it'll go out there in the field and it'll do work with the rest of them, but yeah, it's a good one to kind of put out there on the road for lots of people to look at. But I thought, in light of that, I would finally do my comparison between an 1800A, a 1750, and a 1755. I don't have a 1750 here to compare, but I asked Jake Ziegler if I could use his 1800C to kind of fill in, because the C's, a lot of them, by what I hear, were actually just re-serialed or relabeled as 1750s when the 50 series came out. And so that's as close as you're going to get to a 1750, and really nothing much changed between a 1800C and a 1750. So I'll probably clip in some of his videos that he's taken on his, just to show some of the differences. But I'm kind of winging this, so just going off memory. So some of it might not be exactly accurate, but I should get the general overview of it. So first, we will cover the dash. Now, this is an A series dash. So you've got a 1900A, you've got an 1800A. They both have this throttle that's up on the column, just like the fleet lines, and they have the gauges with the lights in the middle there. So that's your first indicator on that it's an A series. It also does not have tilt. This one does have power steering. Some of them did not, and they would run the steering shaft right down through here, just like they would on a 770 or something like that. So then on a 50 series, you'd have the throttle right over here, and your hydropower would still be down here, but all this is oriented just a little bit differently. That's about it on the dash. On this A series here, you've got these rubber isolators for the seat, and on the B's it would have that, the B series, and an 1800B would have the same dash. An 1800B would have the spears, or whatever they call them, like this on the sides instead of the checkerboard. 1850 has the same seats as pretty much all the 50 series, which has the cylinder in the back and set up differently than this. This is very reminiscent of the fleet lines here. Let's see. So the A series has this panel on the grill, and the 50 series, so the B series through the 50 series have the smaller emblem in the middle. But it's the same basic grill on all those. And you can see on this side it's pretty much the same thing. Another key indicator on the 55 series, as you can see, it's got the headlights in the grill there. So very similar, but you can even see from the side that it's got this pocket here for the headlights. All your 50 series and the C series 1800s have this spear on here, but and I'm missing this, on a 55 series you're going to have these little white pieces coming out that flare out the side. Okay, on the dash, on a 1755 and up, it looks a lot like the whites did. It's got a dash that basically was designed for future cab use. So it's a very square, rigid piece right here where the cab would go on, and then you'd have, an obviously different hood right here, which is just like any of the other 4 digits. So this one, you've got your throttle on the side down here, your hydraulic shift. This one is a later one, so it has the key down there on the bottom and the fuel shutoff here. Otherwise, there's not too much different about the dash on here. The pedals on the 55 series hang from the top, and I'll get into the brakes in a little bit, but as you can see, it has that parking brake lever right there, which you'll find on all the 1755 and up. And then the hydraulics, they have that unit right there, which is going to be different than the 50 series or anything before that. Okay, so the mechanical differences are quite a bit between this 1800A and that 1755. Now, an 1800A diesel would have had a 283 diesel, and then a B series through 1755 all have a 310 diesel. They're naturally aspirated. The engines did have some changes internally between them, but for the most part they're basically the same, except for that oddball A series. This 1800A has a 2-speed hydropower, and a 50 series would have a 2-speed hydropower, and then a very late 50 series might have a 3-speed hydraulic shift, and they all have the overrunning low underdrive. The hydraulic shift has the 25% or 20% overdrive on the top. So this has the hydraulic shift, and it's clear behind this panel. You really can't see much. You can get in here to check the oil when you need to. You got to pull that off to adjust the clutch, pretty much. Another major difference is the hydraulics. On a 55 series, you've got this external closed center hydraulic system. It's got the big old hydraulic filter right here. Here's your pressure relief and priority and reducing valves. Reducing valves would go over to your brakes and your PTO and your steering. Okay, we're back with the light on now. So pressure relief and pressure reducing and priority valve are all built into this block right here. This is the big hydraulic filter. This is on the suction side of the pump on the 55 series. On the 1800 through 1750, or pretty much any of the 4-digit ones, it is on the pressure side in a big cast iron canister, either on the side or on the front. I'll show that. Here is your brake actuator. It's got a hydraulically actuated cylinder on the outside which applies the brakes, so you get much better braking capacity on that than a 1750 or 1800, any of the 50 series. Over here is your mechanical dry brakes, which are just actuated like that. And then on these, that back there is your brake lock. Okay, on this, here's your hydraulic unit. It's all contained in here. Is your reservoir, and there's the pump is underneath here. And it's a open center system. So what does that mean, open center and closed center system? Okay, so open center means that whenever your valves, whenever your levers are in the neutral position, fluid is constantly running straight through them and then right back to the tank. And closed center system is much more like an air system, like your air compressor. It builds up a certain amount of pressure, and then the pump essentially turns off, and that pressure stays there. There is going to be a little bit of a leak, and so it does kind of consistently pump. So that means, since the fluid is not constantly flowing It's going to need an external cooler, and you'll see on some of the earlier ones there'll be another pump right here. It's sometimes called a charge pump, it's sometimes called a cooling pump. While it does kind of help to prime the main pump, most of it just diverts right back into the reservoir. What are the advantages, disadvantages? Closed center systems, you're going to have constant pressure and adjustable volume. The pump is a variable displacement, positive displacement pump, piston pump, and so it will do the best it can to keep up with whatever your volume requirements are. Open center system, you're going to have constant volume and differing pressure. The pressure is going to be based on the restriction. Pressure is built by trying to force, a certain amount of volume through whatever the restriction is, and whatever doesn't make it through basically shows up as pressure on a gauge. So the advantages and disadvantages. The advantage on the 55 series, much better variable hydraulic control. It's even more pressure. It's more volume and tends to stay cooler. You can run multiple hydraulic attachments at the same time, and they don't really affect each other. So it's not like if you put a loader on a 50 series, it's very possible that when you're trying to run the bucket or the loader boom, you might not have, your valve may not be able to run the bucket at the same time. It just depends on the valve. Some of them, it'll work just fine. 55 series, you kind of just use however much volume is available from the pump, so you can run lots of different stuff at the same time. One-way cylinders, huge deal on the Oliver tractors. How do you hook up a one-way cylinder? That question gets asked all the time. It's different on lots of them, on all these different models. There's usually, oh boy, I don't even know on this. There is usually so you can see it back here. Here is a relief valve, and you'd loosen this jam nut, screw that out, and then that allows one direction of this valve to basically bypass to the tank. What is this? I don't know. I asked one time and now I've forgotten. I think this was somebody else's solution to a one-way cylinder. They would just crack this open and it returns right back to the tank, and then you don't even have that restriction there. Probably a better system, probably a better idea. So I don't know. You guys tell me on that. Leave your opinion on that down there in the doobly-doo. The hydraulics, the valves on the 50 series or 100 series, they're basically on or off. So if you've ever tried to run a loader with one of these valve systems, try to do something careful with it, and you're just going to end up smashing everything because you hit the lever and it just full on. It's going straight down or it's not, and it stops. This, you can feather it. Now, my valves were, when I bought this, were leaking. They would not hold the loader up for more than about 5 minutes. Probably 10 minutes to go from all the way up to all the way down, and it was bypassing the valve. If I unhooked it, it would just stay put. My solution at the time was to get a external spool valve. That one could be rigged up as either open center or closed center, so it's rigged up as closed center right now. That is definitely the way to go. It's got a float position on it, which you can get a float valve for these 55 series, and they're really pretty easy to install. But this also left the rear remotes open, so I can use them as well for anything else. So when I've got that trencher on or whatever, I can use that for that, and I don't have to unhook my loader to run anything else. I do have a third one over there, which I've just never plumbed in, but I do plan on getting a grapple for this bucket, and so that'll run that. Those cup holders are not factory options, those are aftermarket. Seat on here is going to be very similar to a white seat with the cylinder on the back. You can't really see it back here, but I'll go back there. It's got kind of a lot more room down here, and that also has to do with the hydraulic unit. The draft control is better, but it can be a little hard to adjust. It's more sensitive, or can be set up to be more sensitive, but it's it can be finicky too. So I'll go around to the back here. Sorry, it's a little crowded back here. So 3-point, or 3-point on these, since it's got the open center. This is the 50 series or 100 series with the open center hydraulics. Your 3-point is kind of tied into the same deal as all the rest of your hydraulics. So you run the 3-point, you probably won't be able to run your hydraulic remotes at the same time, or not very well, or you can end up slowing everything down by trying to do too many things at the same time. It's only going to go as fast as whatever the slowest or most restrictive piece is in the line, because as you run more and more valves, like the 3-point and maybe both control valves, it has to run through all 3 of those in series. So over here on the 55 series, it's also plumbed into the hydraulics, but with the closed center, unless you run out of volume, the 3-point's going to run the same speed up and down all the time. Even if you're trying to fold up a marker or whatever it is that you're trying to do. Unless they take more volume than your pump can put out, and then your 3-point's going to slow down. Otherwise, it will keep up much better. PTO, another big deal on this. This is a hydraulically actuated internal wet clutch PTO. This one is 2-speed. This is your shifter down here. I pull that out, and you can shift and then put in the 1000 shaft, or you can cut the end off of that and shift it on with either one of them in there. The 155 or 50 series, the PTO is, well, let me go over there real quick. PTO is mechanically operated. This one does happen to stop when you push it all the way forward, but a lot of times on these, you're gonna have a hard time getting this to stop. Either it's not gonna stop, or you get it so it stops and then it won't stay fully engaged, and you end up slipping it. And then once you slip it, then the discs warp, and you're never gonna get it to stop. Then it's pretty much engaged all the time, and good luck with that. Let's talk about these hydraulic valves. These are your valves. In here is how you set your detent. Here is a flow restriction. There is that is your overall flow restriction, I think, and this is your return restriction so that you can smooth it all out. Here is your high pressure line. It's constantly pressurized, so on this one I've got my external spool valve plumbed into this, and I've got the coupler so I can unhook the whole loader, and it all comes off with that. This is your return to tank. Back here, right here, if you had a category 3 6,000 pound 3-point, this would have a T in it and have hydraulic cylinders plumbed over here to your 3-point arms. Another quick difference here while I'm standing back here. These plates on the 50 and 55 series are clover white. They are meadow green on the 100 series on the A's and B's. I think that's it. And you can see there's a little design difference. That one is totally flat. This one has this bend in it, which I actually made these because I wanted to add more lights to it. So I just made a whole new panel and had a place bend these for them. Cut it all out, drill all the holes, bolt them in. So that's because, you know, safety third. So coming back over here to these brakes, hydraulically operated brakes. So because of that, there's no lock on the brake pedal. So when you park it, you've got an actual parking brake lever here. And that mechanically operates the brakes. So when people say, oh yeah, 55 series, I don't like them because if you lose hydraulic pressure or your engine quits, you don't have any brakes. Well, you could get by with that, but just let me know if that's what you're doing so I can get off the road. Over here on the A series, it actually has straight cut gears. So supposedly they're whiny, but this one you wouldn't, I mean, Doesn't bother me. I guess I hear it, but I hear it on the 1755 also. I guess under the hood there's a couple differences. This hydropower, here's a heat exchanger that goes to through coolant hoses up here that run kind of on both sides of the thermostat there, and that's how you cool off the hydropower on that. Over here you can see lines down there. There is two coolers up front. There's one for the hydraulics, and I don't know if you can see in here, there's one for the hydraulics and one for the hydropower. Yeah, this thing's pretty filthy, it's hard to see, but so they are totally external on this. They don't touch the coolant at all. So good or bad, I'll let you decide. So there you go. There's some differences for you. Oh yeah, and since the 55 series have the lights up in the grill, they tend to not have two lights in the fender. Now I have seen some with two lights. I'm not sure if that was a factory deal or not. I have heard that was an option, but I don't have any paperwork to back that up. So the 50 series or the 100 series have two lights in the fender, and that's for anything 1750 and bigger. 1650s would still just have one headlight in each fender, because I guess you don't need as much light when you're driving a smaller tractor because you fit through smaller holes. I don't know. That's my theory. Well, hopefully I answered all the questions. Can't think of anything else. Let me know if you got any other questions on these. Like I said, I've got this 1800 for about a week before it should be heading down the road. So if you have any questions on that, let me know, and I'll try to grab some pictures or videos. So kind of a long video, but I wanted to get that done before this tractor left. So thanks for watching.